Welcome to the Transformed Homemakers Society podcast. This is for the Christian mother who loves her children, but she feels like she's barely surviving. So if you've ever woken up dreading the day or counting down the hours until bedtime, if you're touched out by the people you love most, if you're always on edge, reacting before you can even think, you're not crazy. You're under chronic stress. And I've been there too, and the Lord showed me a way out. I'm Kiri, the founder of the Transformed Homemaker Society, and this podcast is where we escape survival mode and find genuine peace and delight in motherhood, becoming the calm, joyful mother you always wanted to be.
There is something that is quietly and powerfully shaping Christian mothers, and not in a good way. So today I am here to de-influence you about the way that we consume social media as homemakers. So today I'm chatting with you about how and why I believe social media is destroying Christian mothers and how we can reclaim our homes and the hearts of our family, even with social media being a normal part of everyday life. Okay, so if you are a millennial like me, you probably remember life without social media. I remember thinking before social media existed, what I imagined motherhood would be like. And so I want you to think back on that time. Before social media existed, what did you think motherhood would be like? I guarantee that your image of motherhood was completely different than how it's being lived out now by most mothers, even Christian mothers. Now let's think about how many worldly concepts that you either currently or previously lived by came from social media in general. So think of like when you were dating, the whole try it before you buy it mentality. Or, oh, you should move in with your boyfriend before you get married just so you can know if you're compatible together. Or at least go on a vacation with your boyfriend so that you know how that person, handles stress or reacts under stress. Or have you heard of these things? Or even sex before marriage because, you don't want to get stuck with. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go there, but you know what I'm talking about. We've all heard these things. And then, you go into parenthood and it's like, if you don't fill your children's lives every second of the day with fun activities and sports and all the things, then you're not giving them the ideal childhood. Or just the fact that like children can even be bored in general is a concept that I personally have gotten from social media. Or going to Disneyland is another one. If your kids don't go to Disneyland, then they're not going to have, a good childhood or the ideal childhood, or, they're missing out in some way. And then think of other parenting choices like, co-sleeping or sleep training or, breastfeeding or bottle feeding. All of these concepts, or at least the very strong opinions around them, have come from social media. Would you agree? One of the biggest lies that social media pushes on us is the idea that busy is better. We're told that unless we are overcommitted, filling every hour of the day with activities for our children, attending every event and, tackling our endless to-do lists, that our children aren't getting the ideal childhood. And this busy culture leaves no room for meaningful connection with our families, and I think it's really damaging. And then there's the mom shaming. Social media has created this environment where every parenting decision, breastfeeding, sleep training, co-sleeping, is up for debate and criticism. How often do we second guess our natural inclinations on a particular parenting decision based off of someone online who just had a really strong opinion about how we're raising our children? This causes so much confusion, you guys, and that is not of the Lord. And this confusion leads to anxiety and anger and all kinds of emotional dysregulation for moms. My next issue with social media is the fact that it gives this false illusion of connection that sometimes replaces the deeper real life community that moms are craving now more than ever. Mothers now are feeling lonelier and more disconnected than ever because they're comparing their real their real life struggles with the polished lives of the people that they see online. And also, they feel like they have this sense of community because of the communities that they're a part of online, when in fact, they may not have a real life community at all. And so, in my opinion, this false sense of connection online enables some women who may already find it difficult to get out of their shell, to go out and find connection in real life. It enables them to stay home because they're getting little teeny tiny doses of this connection, just enough to make them feel like they are connected with other mothers, and they're not actually. Don't get me wrong. I totally understand that there are wonderful communities online. I personally have a Facebook group that I host for Christian homemakers, and that inspires wonderful connection. So many Christian mothers in all different seasons of their life, and they're encouraging, edifying, offering rebuke in some cases. It really can foster this wonderful community online. So I'm not saying that there isn't a time or place for that, but what I am saying is that it cannot and it should not replace the real life connection that we so crave. So why? Why can't it replace that? Because it's just not going to satisfy our thirst. We see it all the time. Women who are just so lonely and isolated as a stay-at-home mom because they can't find people to connect with locally. But why? There's tons of people out there. So why are we so afraid to invite people into our homes for real connection? I suspect that is partly due to the insecurity that we feel about the way that we look, or our homes look, or even our children look. We're living in a world where we don't actually buy the things that we like anymore because we don't actually know what we like anymore. We have lost our personal sense of style because, I guess, frankly, we're so focused on what the aesthetic is for, let's say, Christian homemakers or crunchy moms or however else you classify yourself. Often mothers feel pressure to keep up with these aesthetics, which create major issues financially, mentally, all the things. Then they get stuck in this cycle of keeping up with these changing aesthetics, costing them time, money, sanity. Some people have the money to let their own personal aesthetic change along with the, ever-changing trends. They can buy a whole new wardrobe. They can remodel their homes. They can buy new home decor, and that's great. But most people, they can't afford that. And frankly, even the people who can afford it probably shouldn't, because how much more wise would it be to pay off their mortgage or their student loan debt or invest into their generational wealth for their children and their children's children? So my point is that it makes the social media and the aesthetics that are pushed on social media makes it seem like the women who, or, the Christian mothers who don't have that aesthetic, it makes them feel less than, and it makes them feel like they're lacking in some way, when really they probably lead very abundant lives. There's a woman on YouTube. Her name is Susanna Venker. I think that's how you say her name, but she did a video about how there are so many mothers nowadays who want to stay home with their kids but can't. And she said it's because, they think they can't afford it. But she challenges this concept or this idea by talking about the world of excess that we live in these days that makes living off of a single income nearly impossible. And she gives very specific examples of the type of excess purchases that people think are necessary, but are actually frivolous expenses that they never would have spent money on back when she was a stay-at-home mom. And she gives a really compelling argument, but what I loved about it is the very specific examples that she gave about how we live so frivolously nowadays. And the frivolous expenses that we have, we think are necessities, and they're totally not. And she even caught me on a few things. I'm like, yep, I guess I do think that's necessary, but it's really not. So anyway, that was a great video. I would look that up if I were you. So all of this reminds me of Matthew 6:19, which reminds us, Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but to store our treasures in heaven. So we live in a world that glorifies overconsumerism to feel a certain way or to solve a certain issue. But as Christian women, we have so much more freedom than this. We get to put all of our hope in Christ to provide all that we need. And we get to put our identity not on things, not on aesthetics or, anything else that social media lies about, but instead we get to root our identity in Christ. And how freeing is that? We don't actually need that magazine-worthy home or those organizational baskets that are going to solve all our clutter problems or those supplements that'll definitely make your children healthier this winter or those meal kits that'll save you so much time in the kitchen. What we actually need is to live below our means, stop buying so much stuff that we need to declutter all the time, cook nourishing foods to keep our families healthy, and spend much more time in the kitchen with our families. So why do we think that we need to buy a product that'll solve all of our problems? Because that's exactly what social media is meant to make you think. It's designed to influence you. We are stuck in this vicious cycle of adopting routines and aesthetics and even scarier beliefs based on what social media tells us we ought to adopt. But the reality is, and I know you know this, most people don't show you the real struggles they're going through online. And even if they do, even those real moments that they are sharing are curated. They're filtering those real moments and the struggles that they're sharing with you through what they want you to see of that struggle. And let me tell you, there is so much more left unseen. Even me, I try to be really real and explain to you that I had a really hard time with homemaking, and I struggle specifically with mom anger is something that I've really struggled with in the past. And even then, I'm not showing you every aspect of that. I'm showing you exactly what I want to show you of that struggle. And that doesn't mean that I'm lying. It just means that I'm sharing with you what I'm comfortable with sharing. And that's okay for me as a content creator. But for all of us who are consuming content, we have to understand that we are getting a curated view of everything, even the real moments, even people who are sharing their struggles. Am I saying that we should get rid of all social media and never buy anything again? I mean, yeah, that would be nice, but that's probably not realistic. So all I'm saying is that we need to get really intentional about who we follow and who we're allowing to influence us. So if you remember one thing is this very important concept. Every time you open social media, you are subconsciously filtering everything you see through the lens of who you aspire to be one day. Let that sink in. Whether it's intentional or not, you are searching for clues, how to behave, what to value, what to buy, to feel like you're becoming that version of yourself that you dream of being. Social media algorithms are designed to exploit this natural longing that you have. They know that as humans, we crave fulfillment and a sense of arrival in life. And so they study behaviors and likes and clicks, and they feed you the content that aligns with your aspirations, subtly nudging you to believe that a product, a lifestyle, or an aesthetic will bring you closer to that ideal. The danger is that, unfortunately, social media often pushes us toward a shallow or worldly goals, convincing us that we need to look a certain way or own specific products or adopt trendy habits in order to arrive. But as Christian women, our ultimate identity isn't found in fleeting trends or curated aesthetics. It's rooted in Christ. Recognizing this allows us to break free from the constant pull of social media and instead focus on the eternal, purposeful life that God has called us to. So in my course, I walk my students through this beautiful exercise. It's called the Ideal Homemaker Persona. And we literally create this persona intentionally and biblically. It's a great exercise because it inspires intentional homemaking and to become that person that you've always dreamt of being, that wife, that mother that you've always dreamt of being. And it can be really transformative, but it's done from the right lens. It's done from a biblical lens with our sights on Christ and what his view of the mother is, what his view of the homemaker is. So if you're being influenced, though, by the wrong people or concepts, then this desire can really be destructive because you are absorbing everything and you're adopting certain beliefs and values from everywhere. So you have to remember that every time you go on social media of any kind, you're being influenced, whether you like it or not. So be influenced by the people who inspire you to be the best mother and wife that you can possibly be. People who are advancing the gospel and who are truly doing the Lord's work. And then unfollow everyone else because it's all just noise and influence that you don't need in your life. And so one thing I wanted to say is that you guys have given just the best comments on my channel lately, just the sweetest comments about how I inspire you to be a better homemaker and how I'm changing the way that you see your role in the home. And I cannot tell you how much this means to me. Seriously, I'm so grateful for this community. And I wanted to be clear, I'm so humbled by these comments because I know that anything good that I say has nothing to do with me and it's coming straight from the Lord. So all the glory be to him because, yeah, it's all him. And I'm just so grateful for you guys giving me that encouragement. So thank you for that. Okay, so what's the cost of all of this if we get it wrong? If we don't keep our social media usage on a very short leash? Okay, this is going to sound a little intense, but it can destroy your health and your home. Social media does this thing where it gives you little dopamine hits all day long, which those dopamine hits come with crashes that affect how you treat your family and it affects how you feel internally. And before you know it, you're irritated, resentful, you're snapping at your family, and you aren't associating it to the fact that you just saw something on social media that made you feel, I don't know, like less than in some way, or maybe shamed or guilty. Excessive time spent scrolling through social media can really pull mothers away from engaging with their families and being present. And I know that you know this, but that constant notifications and the urge to stay connected online. Do you know that feeling of like you need to pick up your phone? And you're like, why? I don't even know why I feel the urge to pick up my phone. It's this urge to stay connected online, and it can result in less quality time with your family and making your family members feel neglected and unimportant. So I know that none of us want that. And so it's so important that we keep that on the forefront of our mind when we're using social media. We live in a world now too, where I really feel strongly about this. We have all this awful news from around the globe at our fingertips all the time. Natural disasters, horrible tragedies, all kinds of heinous crimes. And it never used to be that way. Before, you basically knew what was happening in your local environment, and that's it. And all this information is adding to that overstimulation and that heavy feeling that mothers already experience so much of. So that's a problem. But then aside from all of that, there's the comparison trap. Comparison breeds jealousy, bitterness, resentment, and all of this can literally make you sick. We are warned about this so many times in the Bible. So it's no wonder why so many mothers are feeling discontented, overwhelmed, and overstimulated all the time. But there's something we can do. We can be intentional with how we use social media as a tool. And remember this, every time you go on social media, you are being influenced. So choose to be influenced by the people who inspire you to be the best homemaker you can possibly be and inspire you to advance the gospel and to pour into your family with love and grace. And then just unfollow everything else because it's all just noise.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me and listening to this episode of the Transformed Homemakers Society podcast. If you're ready to escape survival mode and embrace a calmer and more intentional rhythm of motherhood, you can start with my free workshop linked in the show notes. I'd love for you to also leave a review and share this with a friend. It'll help the show to grow and bless even more homes. I'll see you in the next episode.